So these are all photos I've shot on different iPhones over the years, and not all were taken on the latest model, and that's the point. If you understand the light, the composition and the editing, your photos will be good, no matter what you're shooting on. And if you have a more capable phone, it just will get easier. But having the best camera and not knowing how light and composure work will give you bad results for sure. So just buying the newest iPhone won't give you the Apple keynote results by accident. And right now I am still using my iPhone 14 Pro Max, and Apple changes stuff from time to time, but the overall goal with the settings is to enable the highest possible quality whilst keeping the needed file size down. First, we'll cover the fundamentals that work on any phone, basically how to take a good photo, and then the iPhone specific settings I use, and I will keep that short and precise so it doesn't get boring. And at the end, I show a quick edit on Lightroom Mobile with some vintage and character rich presets to make the photos just stand out. So part 1, the fundamentals, and they work on any iPhone and on any camera for that matter, because it's just how to take a good photo. Number 1, clean the lens. This first one should be an obvious one, and I honestly was debating whether or not I should talk about that, but most people tend to forget that. Before you want to take a picture, just wipe down your lens with your shirt, because after some time your lens gets smudgy and fingerprints add haze and lower the contrast, and it just make the image look soft and dull. Number 2 is light, because good lighting does more than a sensor upgrade. And that's one of the reasons the official Apple shot on iPhone photos just look so good. So understanding how light works will make a huge difference in the overall quality of your shots. And if you're outdoor and the sun is just high and harsh, try to find some shade. And if you're photographing people in that light, they will have harsh shadows under their eyes, which just doesn't look complimenting to them. And golden hour, which means sunset basically, for example, looks so good because it gives softer shadows and just richer colors overall. And also make sure the sun is not behind your subject, or in other words, don't shoot directly into the sun, because then you can't expose your subject correctly. And if you're indoors, place your subject near a window and keep the background a little darker. Side lighting adds shape and front light just flattens. And for starters, try to place the light source in a 45-degree angle to your subject, and this is called Rembrandt lighting, which gives you a shadow on this side. And it is one of the most famous lighting setup because it looks so cinematic, and you saw it in a lot of movies already. And if the light source is behind your subject will appear darker to the point where you can only see the black silhouette. This can be a creative choice, but unless it's not, try to light your subject from the side in ideally 45-degree angle. And lastly, avoid the built-in flash, unless it's a creative choice again, because it flattens the skin. And as we learned, light makes your subject look good when it comes from the side, but the flash in your camera is always in the same direction as your camera and spills the light basically everywhere. Number 3 is composition, and the fastest way to make your photos look more intentional is the framing. And for that you can turn on the grid in the camera, which helps you frame your subject. And this tool is also awesome because it helps you to level your shots. Changing your height and therefore the perspective makes a huge difference, because we find different perspective always interesting because it's new and it's something we don't usually see with our eyes. But when you take a photo with the standard 1x or 24mm lens from eye level, it's just not interesting. It's something we see all the time. And if the background is busy or cluttered, it can be hard to the viewer to focus on the subject. So try to rearrange the background or just move the camera a bit. And next, using leading lines. This is probably the most common composition trick to make your shots look intentional, because you can play with the leading lines to basically frame your subject or to lead the viewer's eye into a specific point. Next up is foreground and layers. This makes a big difference to have something in the foreground getting blurry while your subject is in perfect focus. And for that you have to place something closer to the lens. Symmetry and playing with negative space are most common in architectural photos, but you can of course adapt that to other photography styles as well. Negative space is just basically empty space in a photo, and for example it can be a blue sky. And because the viewer's eye has less distraction in the overall picture, the negative space also guides the eye towards the subject. And I noticed myself that I often feel more looking at a picture when there's some empty space, which kind of leaves some room for thoughts, if that makes sense. And regarding feelings, next up is the focal length, because that makes your photo just feel different, because the distortion is different. Different lenses distort your environment in a different way. And on the recent iPhone models we have the 0.5 or ultra wide lenses, and those are awesome when you want to fit a lot into the frame, take macro shots, or just get creative with your shots. For example, it looks always awesome if your subject points out a hand near the camera or a foot, and it's just a creative style, but normal portraits with the ultra wide just will look too distorted, which looks very bad, especially at faces. Then we have the 1x or the 24mm lens, which is good for most stuff, and in most iPhones the main camera has also the best sensor, letting in more light, but 24mm also can look very basic and sometimes also boring in my opinion. And for portraits, 2 times or 3 times look more flattering and interesting because you get a little bit more of that real bokeh, meaning the background gets blurry behind your subject while your subject stays in focus. And this makes your photos look more pro for that matter. And depending on your iPhone, you have a 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, or in the newest iPhone 17 Pros, even an 8 times lens. Always use the focal lengths your iPhone has built in and never pinch to zoom, because this will be a digital zoom and not an optical. And that means the iPhone scales your photo, which results in a heavy quality loss. And the newest iPhone scales the 4 times lens, which is the optical lens, to a digital 8 times, but it is more advanced than just scaling an older iPhone, let's say from a 3 times lens to a 6 times lens. Next, we have exposure control, and you can pull the iPhone's exposure down a bit to get that moody Instagram iPhone look. And I personally like that moody look on some pictures, and it is a quick way to make, for example, gym photos look instantly better. And you can also adjust the settings of the camera so that it remembers your settings when you open it the next time. And after you've got the picture, I quickly want to go over the editing philosophy. Think of editing as finishing or detailing, but not necessarily as fixing something. So with the fundamentals we covered, you have a very good starting point for a premium color grade. It is easy to overdo it and push the colors or shadows too hard, but small exposure corrections, a gentle contrast curve, clean white balance and subtle color shifts make your photos just look premium and nice. Every photo and scene is different and needs slightly different tweaks, and I like to use presets as a starting point and adjust from there. And before we go to the iPhone specific settings for the best image quality, and if the video was helpful for you until now, please consider subscribing and commenting. This would help me out a lot, is free of charge for you, and it shows the algorithm that this video is worth showing to more people. Thank you so much. I think scrolling through settings can be boring, so I try my best to keep this section short but precise. So models and iris versions differ a bit, but the general approach and the goal is the same. We want to capture the cleanest image with the most minimal file size. And keep in mind that I am using an iPhone 14 Pro Max with iOS 26, so if you don't see the same settings, just use one that comes close. So at first we go into settings, camera, formats, and make sure we active high efficiency to save some space. If your phone supports it, turn on ProRAW and resolution control. This lets your phone capture pictures up to 48 megapixels. And the higher megapixel count is important if you want to print your photos in a bigger format or if you want to crop it in post. And the ProRAW makes the file size larger because it contains more information, which is helpful for the grading process. In the camera app, you can manually switch between the formats and choose 12 or 48 megapixels. So you can always decide if you're just taking a casual photo or capturing a moment you want to have in the highest quality. Below formats, we find preserve settings. This is down to your personal preference. You can choose which settings should be remembered when reopening the camera app after you closed it. For example, I only have the exposure adjustment turned on, and normally I have it set at -0.7. And that way you get the moody iPhone look without making everything too dark. But with editing in general, every scene and every photo is different, and therefore you need to adjust it depending on your needs. I have ProRAW and resolution control turned off because I want to intentionally turn it on since it uses much more storage. Of course, just because it's so useful, I also have scan QR codes and show detected text also turned on. Below that we have composition. I turn grid and level on since it is crucial to compose your shot. Mirror front camera off and view outside the frame on. Sometimes it can be distracting, but most of the time I found it useful to see what would come into frame when using another focal length. Regarding the indicators, I have flash and live photos turned on so that I can manually switch them on and off in the camera app. So in the camera app, you can tap the top left to switch quickly between formats and the megapixels, and at the top right, you can tap the 6 dots or swipe the photo button at the bottom to access quick settings like the exposure. And if you want, you can also choose styles or filter, but these manipulate the photo in a more generic way, and we want a premium feeling. And with that, let's go into Lightroom Mobile, which is the editing app of choice because it just syncs seamlessly between my iPhone and the Mac. And if you like any of these presets, feel free to check out my website. I'm running a discount right now, and they also come with detailed instructions on how to install them on the mobile app as well as on the desktop app. Okay friends, so let's just go ahead with changing into another folder with just unedited photos. And let's just start with our first one. And down here you can see that we have different buttons to choose from, and this right here is for presets. And as I said, I really like to go and start with a preset and go from there and just, for example, adjust the exposure, because every photo is different. So we have here different preset packs, and in each pack are different presets. And I see this photo and I already know what style I want to go for. I want it a little bit washed out, really vintage. And I have a specific preset pack in mind. But in this pack, not every preset will look good, because some presets will pull the orange colors and some the blue and some the greens. For example, here you can see a little preview. This is way too green, obviously. But this, for example, looks better. It is a bit too dark, but exposure, of course, we can adjust later on. But let's just quickly go through the different styles. Already I like this one a lot more than those. And you can see how each preset will manipulate the colors in a different way. But in this case, I like that one more, but I want it a bit brighter. So then we can go into settings, light, and we can adjust the exposure ever so slightly. And of course, if you want to adjust the grain, you can go into effects, grain, and then you can just affect the grain itself or the size of the grain. Vignette also more often than not looks kind of good, and I think I really like that one. It looks cool. Okay, so going back, maybe another one. This has just a lot of different colors than the previous one. So again, into presets, but now we want to take another one. Maybe just start here and quickly going through the presets and checking which one will look good. Okay. I like that one a lot more because it just pulls out the colors nicely. You have like a green tint in this wave because the sun was hitting it from behind, but you can also see the clouds. So you have to check the light, and I don't want to bring the exposure up because then you can see it affects also the clouds, and when you can't see the highlights good enough, it just doesn't look professional. So I think I like this photo a lot. So this is the before, this is the after, and I don't want this section to be too long for you guys, so I'm quickly going ahead. And again, you know the drill, first into presets, and then maybe another one. Again, same procedure, just checking which one may be a good fit. You can see in some presets the difference is just slight, but also noticeable. I like that one. And maybe we can adjust the grain size. No, maybe a bit less. And vignetting on this photo, I think it wouldn't look good because vignetting the sky in this case, I don't think is necessary. So I'm pretty happy with that picture, the before, the after, before and after. And now the last one, because it's again a very different photo with different colors, a lot of blue sky in this picture. Let's just go ahead and, I don't know, just take another one. Same procedure. You can see how it affects, how each preset affects the color in a different way. I mean, this is way too much, but for some photos, it will look good. Yeah, you can see this photo looks way different than that one, because here you have purple colors in the picture, in the data, but you can't see them with all of the other presets, but this preset right here is dialed in so that purple will pop more, so you can see the purple colors in the picture. But I like this preset more. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one and learned something. And if you like this video, please make sure to leave a comment and like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me.